The problem with architecture is that also we try to grasp it with our eyes. Its materiality includes a concept that we cannot see, but only understand. The visible surface could be described as horizons. The enclosed space is not only architecture, but an accumulation of architectonic horizons that form a boundary we use to define the space. Our intention is to control this space for a short period before it and its inherent distinctiveness escape our grasp. Hello everybody. This was a text from 2005 of us. We wrote about architecture. When we started to work together, this was in 2004. We started our own studio. This is Josef Saller and me, Heribert Wolfmayr. So the name heri&salli is out of our names. We get known each other in the end of our study in 1999. That was in Graz, in Austria. And in the next few years, till 2004, we did 1 or 2 projects a year, mostly temporary interventions or installations in public space, and also we're working in different studios. The concept of space, how we try to grasp the city, the understanding of a city or a building, is for us a wide field of relationships. Spatial ones and relationships of objects. Different medias, physical, material ones, also as immaterial ones, may create this space. Create this perception of space for us. Authenticity. The theme of this festival. We thought about it. What does it mean for a city, for people, for a society to be authentic? Authenticity does not say so much about, let's say, for example, a society at the first moment, or maybe a state. If someone tells me, for example, over there, behind the hill, is living a society that really could be described as authentic, I wouldn't know how these people really are. And especially, I think that's a really important thing, or maybe the main point. How are the values of this society? And how do we see these values first from our personal view? Do we see them as positive ones or more negative ones, regardless of the fact how authentic they are? I think that could be a point to discuss about it. For example, authenticity for me or for us doesn't say anything about, and I think that's a quite actual thing, about tolerance. For me, it doesn't say anything about it, and vice versa. Tolerance doesn't assume automatically authenticity. If I want to know anything about the city, how would I like the city to develop? I would like to know firstly nothing about architecture, but everything about this society. What are the visions of this society? How do they imagine their future? How do they like to develop? At this point, maybe we also could discuss about it if authenticity deals more with the future or more with the past. When we think about our own work, it's difficult for us to identify our work with our authenticity whenever possible to do it by ourselves. For us, one of the most important words in architecture is possibility. Different possibilities of creating, developing, using, interpreting space. The intention of possibilities for us also assumes that a city, or maybe simply a house, is something like a field, ready to be filled with something like different substances, creating a heterogeneous mass, material and immaterial positions. So as the 20th century was full of idealistic positions, seen maybe as a fast journey, a stringing together of strong idealisms. And every idealism had its counterpart, its own antiposition. So the 20th century is also a time of dualistic developments. Maybe people should critically think about it, if we really should push that on, or if there are other possibilities of developments. Something like a pluralistic behavior or discourse and acting with a more or less open end of materialization. Therefore, we would like to present our work as fields of possibilities. Architecture, as sometimes in the past was formulated, is not only about form, because forms maybe could be interpreted differently, not only at the moment, but also over a distance of time, also when it's just about the same object or building. Architecture is also not only about movement, about the promenade through space. Architecture as a moment of walking, driving, or flying, whatever you like. Maybe we should not prescribe a movement through a building, or keep so much as possible open. 1,000 ways of experience and not only one promenade. Architecture is also not only about conditions, about experiencing, feeling, smelling, listening, or environment. We don't believe in 100% digital space. Architecture is also not only about function, because some cases of functions couldn't be used anymore after some time, and the aim could be to produce multifunctional spaces or maybe artificial spaces. Not for any use at all. For us, space has to be used. And architecture is also not only about setting of developments, about strategies, about tactics, positioning furniture in the middle of the street on the weekend, but it could develop a sense of public space. The feeling that this space is also ours. It could be a weak experiment of imagination, the imagination of a city, and the possibilities of developments.
So, hello from my side. So we will present you now 5 possibilities, and we show you these 5 possibilities, 9 projects, and we have tried to find for ourselves, for our studio work, some connections with these possibilities. The first one is the possibility of movements. How can I understand movement? Normally movement, I go from one way to the next way, to connect something to walk, or to run, or to jog. But how can I find other way for movement? For example, these are 2 projects. What you see at the beginning, on the one side, on the left side, it was an art project in the country of Salzburg in Austria. other side, it was for a private client. It was some kind of handrail, some kind of stair design. When I explain first the first project, it's called Real Landscape, Real Mistake. 7 artists and architects are invited to make some project with the topic Real Landscape. And for us, real landscape was not possible. So we decided that everybody who makes something to a real landscape makes a real mistake. So we connect these real mistakes, these old mistakes, and make the way to design the way. So we have started to thought about it. How can I connect from one point to the end? And at the beginning, it was clear for us to find the zebra crossing as connecting instrument. It was for us not only a movement, it was some code of rhythms, some code that can connect. It started to going slow, fast. It was something different speed what I had to walk on the zebra crossing. So we started to think about it. What is a zebra crossing? From to, or between, along, over, through, and meet them. And what is the different character of the zebra crossing? And at the end, after all researches and all ways of development, it can only be its own monument. It's the zebra crossing. And when the zebra crossing goes into its own monument, it losing its character of movement and has its own movement. Next one. So now I change it to the other one. The stair dance, it was a project for a client. It was some kind of renovated apartment in the center of Vienna. And the client said, please connect us. He said to please renovate us the apartment. And the main part of this apartment was the connection between this level and the upper level. So, understanding we had all, for example, these sequences, these codes. We can say we connected from A to B. It's enough, the client was happy, we are unhappy, but everything. So we started to think what's happened, what is a connection? What is, I go to the stairs and I have always this handrail. So for what is this handrail for protection? Yes, the government said for the protection, but maybe I can think to think for this handrail to make it as some kind of movement. When I walk to the stairs from this level to the next level, some kind will follow you. Always with this handrail, this stupid handrail, but nothing else. So maybe we can think about it, not to use the handrail as handrail, some kind of moving element. So when you stand here, not you moving anymore, the handrail is moving. And so after this development, this was the section. On the right side, you see then the final result. You're standing here, we say that for this project, for example, that the handrail or architecture cannot dance, but it can show you some story to dance. How can architecture dance? For example, and then you stand here on this stair, the handrail show you the movement. And you follow always this movement, and you're going back. So when I go back now to the zebra crossing, I hope you will find the possibilities. Our aim from our lecture is that we gave you some possibilities, and I hope you find your own possibilities and find the next step of these possibilities. And when I go back to the zebra crossing, the connection was about 4 kilometers, the zebra crossing, and on the street, it was the Salzburg street, it was normal painted, it was a city project, the children invited that we painted on the street. And then around 1 kilometer of this zebra crossing was in the forest. Excellent. And So we have thought, what's happening in the forest? We cannot use zebra painting in the forest. And so we use the typological of this landscape, that the zebra crossing forms the rhythms of the landscape. So for example, the zebra crossing goes always straight ahead, and so the zebra crossing goes straight ahead, and when I have some mountain or something, it's coming, I get its own rhythms, its own elements. Till to the end, right, it was our dream, where the zebra crossing goes its own movement. So, next one, possibility of form. What is a form? On the left side you see a project of us, it was in the city of Graz. At this project we had a final form. It was a friend of us gave us a 6 meter ball, and we had this ball. What should we do with a complete lead form? On the other side, it was for a private client in Upper Austria, and he wanted to have some fence for protected fence. For example, this is with the ball. We had it was a city. It was a very crowded city, very crowded street, and we thought about this. What's happened with the city, with movements, with forms, and we had this ball. And at the end, we used this ball as our own horizon. It was a horizon of itself, because the ball are completely, we cannot do with the ball anymore. And the city gives us the input for the deformation, for the new form of this ball. When I see this deformation, here on the other side gave us the deformation, and here on the other project, on the landscape fence, the client said it was a pool. We added this project, we realized 2 years ago more or less, and the client came to us, he wanted to have some protecting wall to the neighborhood. It was a beautiful lake in the front, was on the mountains, and there was no space. And we started to have a fence. What is a fence? You can connect it, you can protect something, but maybe it could be more than a fence only to find this A and B. Maybe the fence itself is the possibility of space. So we started to think about this. We always in our model, we have 100 models, we only develop these models. We started to think about this typical Austrian fence. First, two-dimensional, maybe, then in the development, the three-dimensional. This was some sketches. And at the end, for us, the fence cannot be something two-dimensional, it must be a three-dimensional possibility, where these fans have all included what the client wants to have. If then was some developments, how can we create the space, how can we create a structure. And so this, on the right side, then this was the end of the final result of this fence. And to create it, for example, the fence, or the landscape fence, form itself. It's coming from itself, coming from the benches and all this coming from itself, and no opposite. And on the other side, the ball, for example, create the city. The city gives us an imprint of this form. These are the fans. For example, here the fans, this is the imprint of the landscape. For example, for us was the ball the imprint of the city, and for us was the landscape, the fence, an imprint of the landscape, or a signature of the landscape, and the other one was a signature of the city. Here you see the lake, it's beautiful, and all these benches, here the pool, here it was for the client, something coming all from the developer itself. It was a grid of possibilities. And on the other side, we see this total different project, but total different possibilities of forms.